Welcome back to the Emperor Atheist channel with your host, Emperor Atheist. Once again, thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks to all my views, all my comments, negative or positive. I had a request I had a few requests, and I was going to speak on a few things, but I had one in particular. Matter of fact, where's the brother at? I'm finna tell you exactly who it is, and he asked me about the flat earthers theory, and I'm not going to particularly speak on this video, but I got a video coming out. Basically, I've already made the video, but the matter of fact, hold one second. Just give me a second. I'm coming. The brother name was, his name was Emmett Johnson, I think. Yeah, Emmett Johnson, and he responded on my metaphysics video. And basically what I was saying in the metaphysics video, that metaphysics was basically some hype, some bullshit too. A lot of people disagree with me on that. I understand. But I'm not here to talk about metaphysics today. But I'm just letting Emmett Johnson know that I got the video coming as far as on the flat earth. I really can't even believe that's a thing, but it is. But anyway, today, this particular video is speaking on, I'm basically speaking to atheists again. And this video is basically about the arguments for God. And basically what I mean by the arguments of God, basically coming from Christian apologists, or those who claim to be scholars or who are scholars, theological scholars, apologists. And this is really something I want to get over to atheists, because something I kind of rarely seen. I've been in atheist versus theist debates, and I've seen many more. And the one thing I mostly notice about atheists when they get into debates with these theists, especially apologists, Christian apologists, they always seem to get away from the evidence. They get into the arguments, these philosophical, rhetorical, circular arguments, but they always get away from the evidence. And see, this is the thing, and this is what this video is about. One thing that is atheists need to start doing in these debates is sticking to what is the evidence for this imaginary God, not the arguments. And because an argument in and of by itself equals nothing. An argument is basically equal to an hypothesis, which anybody can come up with an hypothesis or an argument, but you have to gather the evidence to back up this argument or hypothesis. And this is the thing, because you have a lot of very eloquent theists, eloquent Christian scholars who can weave arguments and to the crowd who's basically ignorant of actual textual criticism, who's actually ignorant of these books themselves, who was indoctrinated as babies just like all of us. The argument will sway them towards something. And this goes vice versa. Even the atheists can come up with even if atheists have a poor argument, if you just got an argument that could sway the crowd if his opponent is not that good. But these are just arguments against arguments, philosophical jargon versus philosophical jargon. And that's not the way debate should go, especially when we're talking about this thing called God. Evidence is something that we need to get into, not the arguments. Because arguments, like I said, are just only equal to an hypothesis. And when you think about science over the last 100, 200 years, there's been many hypotheses or arguments that have came up. And a lot of them even sound rational, intuitively rational, meaning that just using our rational sense and using our brain, we can listen to a lot of arguments and a lot of hypotheses that would seem to be very rational, very reasonable, but without the evidence, it means nothing. And then actually when the evidence or when the scientific criteria goes into these hypotheses that seem intuitively rational, then come to find out that these hypothesis arguments would be wrong, incorrect. This is the thing about this God. No one has brought evidence for this God. No one has brought evidence for God, and I'm sure they won't be able to bring evidence for this God. But to the atheists and to those, you don't have to be atheist or whatever you want to call yourself, or agnostic or whatever you want to be. But the thing about it, when you're debating online or when you're debating against these theists and against people who believe in this stuff, stick to the evidence. Don't let them throw straw mans into your argument. Don't let them divert the conversation. Don't let them divert it. Stick to the evidence. Arguments, once again, in and of themselves, is not evidence for God. And I'm going to give a good historical example for those who are familiar with Ptolemy and the Ptolemaic model of the universe. Ptolemy believed that his before we actually found real evidence that all of the planets actually revolve around the sun. Ptolemy models said that everything revolved around us. And honestly, it made a lot of sense, because if you think about it, if you just go stand in the middle of a desert and you just look at the night stars and the lights, it seems like everything would be floating around you. So actually, rationally, it would seem acceptable that the Ptolemy model for the universe was correct. But thanks to science, and through centuries and centuries, years later, we found out the Ptolemy model was totally wrong. All of the stars and the sun and the planets don't revolve around the Earth, but actually the Earth and all of the other planets and rocks and whatever you want to call them, they actually revolve around our sun, our yellow dwarf. That's what it's called, a yellow dwarf star that sits in our Milky Way galaxy. So just because something, and I made that point because even if you go back, if you didn't understand science, and if you lived in those times, the argument that Ptolemy brought, I mean, it really couldn't be beat. It couldn't be beat. But the thing about it, the argument didn't stand on its own. And this is the point I'm making about arguments. Arguments cannot stand on their own. So after evidence came, we destroyed the Ptolemy model because we realized that, yes, it was a great argument. It was a beautiful hypothesis, but it was totally wrong. Now, until any of you theists and apologists, and I challenge all of you, any of you, I don't care who you are, bring evidence of your God. And please don't say this. This is another straw man that the theists always like to bring. Well, you show evidence that there is no God. See, and I'm going to cut your head off right here, and this is where you should always cut the theist's head off, or the religiotar's heads off when they say this. The thing about this is the atheist standpoint. The atheist is not the one. First of all, let me clear this up. Atheism, as I always see this, and I have to correct it. Atheism in itself is not a belief. Atheism is a stand against or a rejection of belief. Atheism is the lack of belief in any deity. It's not that we have a belief that no God doesn't exist. It's like you saying you believe that pink unicorns live on the rings of Saturn. Well, I don't disbelieve in that. I just reject your belief. This is the simple stance of atheism. And to say atheism is a belief is basically almost saying like not playing basketball is a sport. It makes no damn sense. And you people need to refrain from saying such ignorant stuff like that. I hate to have to always keep going over that and explaining the definition of atheism and what it is. But if you want to be atheism, you can let it be what you want it to be. But I'm going to keep correcting you. But this is the thing about it. The theists always go to say, well, you need to prove that God doesn't exist. First of all, let me say this, and I think I can speak for most atheists here. I don't want to prove that God doesn't exist, because science doesn't want to prove that, because that's not science's job. And the thing about it, God is an unfalsifiability. It's unfalsifiable. I can't disprove that a God doesn't exist. But what I can do, I can use rationale and reason to show you that 9 times out of 10, this God doesn't exist. And see, this is the thing about some atheists say, well, we know God doesn't exist. And there are different levels of atheism. And a lot of other atheists say, well, or just like all of us are agnostic. Let me clear that up. Everyone is agnostic to something. But the atheists take the position of we outright reject the hypothetical belief in a deity. So the thing is this. The burden of proof is not on me to disprove your imaginary God. The burden of proof is on you. It's on you and on the religious people, and it's been on the religious institution for thousands of years because you're the one who claimed it. Not only are you the one who claims as God, but you have killed people in the name of God. You have raped women. You have committed genocide. Islam, especially the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. You have killed people in the name of this religion, of this God, in which you have brought no evidence for this God, but you have forced it in schools on people. You have forced it in institutions. An atheist cannot even be president of the United States of America. Why? Because you think it's something satanic. This is ignorance. But yet, and it's a funny thing because it was a show I was looking at, Mr. Deity, and he was talking about black man, a white woman, and all of these different things. All of these people, a gay man. All of these people would be president of the United States before atheists would, and that's kind of strange because it just shows how ignorant religion is and how it actually controls the brain and it's taken over the world and it's made people slaves, mental slaves, psychological slaves, and but it's probably true. It's probably true. I don't think in the next 30, 40, 50 years we would ever probably see an atheist president. You know what I mean? It's just what it is, because even though I believe and I think through history we could show that we've definitely had some agnostic or atheist presidents, but they just can't outright say it. Thomas Jefferson had his own Bible. He didn't really care for the Christian beliefs at all. He spoke strongly about it. Third president, by the way. He didn't care nothing about Christianity. He wrote his own Bible called the Jefferson Bible. Y'all can go look that up, which he changed a lot of the what you would call the miracle or the miracle verses and stuff that's the supernatural things. He basically took out because he was pretty smart. He obviously had some common sense to know that shit wasn't real. But anyway, I don't want to jump the subject. But like I was saying, the burden of proof is on the theist. It's not on the atheist to do this. So when theists say this to you, atheists say, well, you should prove that there is no God. That's like saying, simple examples. That's once again, I go back to if I say, hey, I think that pink or green unicorns live on Saturn, and you tell me, say, no, I don't think that, I reject that. Then I can just come back with the same thing, say, well, can you disprove it? Of course you can't disprove it, but does that make it rational or real? No, it doesn't. So it's the same thing. I the one brought the belief. I the one said that pink or green unicorns lived on Saturn. So I should be the one. The burden of proof is on me to prove that, not on the person who rejects it. So once again, arguments in and of itself is not evidence of anything. Arguments are equal to hypothesis. Arguments are hypotheses, and vice versa. Hypotheses are arguments. So this is what I would like to see more in debates when atheists going up against these, especially these theists and apologists who've been to school and they've been taught how to philosophize and weave lies, because that's all it's about. William Lane Craig is, I think he's a charlatan, but if he's not, wow, it's hard for me to believe that a person actually believes the stuff that he says, especially on dealing with the resurrection of Christ and bullshit like that. The things that he says, and if you ever listen to any William Lane Craig debate, you'll see what I'm talking about. He's very boring, very rhetorical, not an ounce of evidence, period. He says that we know that Jesus Christ resurrected because the tomb was empty. Yeah, that's what he says. He says because the tomb was empty, he said we know for a fact that Jesus must have came out of there. Yeah, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, so I could come up with a million different things on things being real because something wasn't there. Yeah, I could really do that. But that's the tale of the tape, man. When it comes to these particular theists who try to use these weak hypotheses, God hypotheses, these weak arguments, stick to the evidence. Evidence has been proven to work for the last 400 or 500 years. You can't get around evidence, and you don't have any evidence for God. So until any of you theists can come with evidence of God, I'm going to continue to be an atheist, and I'm going to continue to smash your books and smash your beliefs and debate you whenever you want to debate. It doesn't matter, because that's what I do. I'm the Emperor Atheist. Thanks for watching my videos. Like my videos. Thanks for all your comments. Peace. I'm out.